I think investment is critical to all economies. And if I look at a country like New Zealand, if I look at our domestic firms, our top 10% are actually 7 times more productive than our bottom 10% of firms. And a lot of that is their adoption of technology in particular. But also then when you look at globally frontiered firms, those that are truly on a global scale, they're even more productive. And so we need that investment, certainly for accessing pools of capital, particularly as we see hundreds of millions of people lifted out of poverty. They're now saving for their superannuation, for their pension, for their retirement. Those funds need homes to be invested in. But importantly, it's about pools of capital, but also it's about knowledge transfer. And when you've often seen large, globally frontiered, multinational companies making investments in, in a country, it actually lifts the productivity of those domestic firms that are planted around them as well. So, either way you look at it, investment's great. We want to see continued flows of investment in all countries, in all markets, because of the knowledge transfer and because of the capital that comes with it. I was just reflecting as you were talking, for New Zealand in the 90s, we had an early adoption of what we called FPOS, or ATMs. In fact, we're probably world leaders in adopting technology like that. And as a result, that was very good for New Zealanders and for financial inclusion in general. But I think you're right around technology. That is the way forward in terms of being able to bring more people into the system, but obviously to participate in the economy in the way that we want to. I do feel there's a huge opportunity in an APEC world order for us to think very precisely about the protocols. We're working quite hard to try and speed up the payment process, for example, from government payments to small and medium enterprises or providers, or suppliers or procurement of services that we use in New Zealand. And we're trying to make that and speed that up to a matter of days so that we can get the cash into those bank accounts, those small, medium enterprises faster, which obviously helps them. But again, the global protocols around all of that enable e-banking and e-invoicing is actually something that collectively we should be working on in bodies like APEC, for example, to get that standardised across the countries and across the globe. And that's where I think there's still a lot of opportunity for us to work collectively together on an agenda like that. Open banking we talk a lot about. We have a slightly different problem now in New Zealand as a developed economy. It's about how do we get more competition into our banking sector. Open banking promises a lot, but actually very few countries have actually been able to deliver that easily. And that's certainly very much of our focus is more fintech application, more technology, more adoption of open banking. How do we make those policies work? E-invoicing. All of those things are very important going forward. I think, pre-COVID, we moved from a world of efficiency to one now of resilience. And in that process, in many ways, with 195 countries in the world, the danger is that each country goes off and does its own thing, dealing with its own needs in the confines of its own jurisdiction. And I think there is a real opportunity now, post-COVID, for us to come together through the global forum like APEC, the work of the IMF, WTO, others, to actually get the operating system in place that actually does allow a much more frictionless financial system. In the Pacific Islands, we see a lot of debanking happening, for example, where banks are withdrawing from the Pacific Islands. And that is in part because of onerous legislation. It's about complicated AML. Now, we need sensible, smart, good regulation always. But some of those things are creating the friction that Kristalina would talk about. In a banking sector like New Zealand, we need a lot more competition, open banking. But it is practical things now, like e-invoicing protocols that need to get sorted between countries. It's those sorts of things that we need to, I think, redouble our efforts and actually paint a picture of what we want to achieve together over the next 10 years to actually get that infrastructure, financial infrastructure and operating system in place that actually would support more financial inclusion around the world. So I think now post-COVID is the time for us to come together and actually say, yes, I know that people are thinking resilience over efficiency, but actually that is not an excuse for us not to engage on these issues and to think about how we can change them. I still remain an incredible optimist about the future and where we can go as a world together. I do think we need to redouble our efforts and come together to actually reinforce the international rules-based system. If you're a country like New Zealand, a small country of 5 million people that relies on international trade, a quarter of our jobs come from trade, our exporting firms pay higher wages and salaries as a consequence of that. We're very invested in making sure we have a rules-based system, not a power-based system. And there has been a shift from rules to power, and that's something we advocate very strongly for, that irrespective of your size, we want countries to be able to navigate their way in the world through the international rules-based order. So I think we've got to keep calling out those values that we hold to, finding like-minded partners and countries all around the world that think similarly, and working together on those challenges that we have. Trade will continue in the world. You know, that horse has bolted, as I said before, earlier off stage, and now, you know, those flows of trade are inevitable. And so good operators, good business people, good traders will find ways to do business with each other around the world. But I think there's a real need for us to, you know, we're going from rules to power. We don't want that. That's not good, because all of our economies have done exceptionally well in the last 70 years off the back of a rules-based system. So why would we want to go backwards on that? We have had a focus on global efficiency, and now everyone's moved to resiliency. We need to make sure that that isn't code for acting independently and not in a joined-up fashion. So I think we've just got to keep advocating for those values that we've all benefited so strongly from over the last 70 years. For APEC leaders, it's about reinforcing the international rules-based system. Because when we have security and stability in the world, we also get economic prosperity. The two are inextricably linked, and so you can't have one without the other. And I think for all of us, it's a good wake-up call post-COVID now to think about a new world that we want to imagine, and that requires us very strongly to think about the rules-based order, what needs to be invented, reinvented, adapted, adopted, changed. Let's have the courage to do that. And make it relevant for our people. And ultimately, you know, as a new politician, it's all about what you deliver for your people. You know, they want us to try, they want us to improve their daily lives, and we've got to be able to do that working together, I think, around the world. So reinforce the international rules-based system so that we can actually have prosperity and also security.